Hey, it's Soul, and welcome back to another episode of... Is it April 19th yet? It's not. It's 2 more resets. Oh my god. Anyway, it would be great if you were to hit that like button, subscribe for more WoW commentary with this whole vibe and candor, and let's begin with the end of the race to World First. It's over, with Echo securing a decisive and non-controversial defeat. Okay, you could say proper defeat of the Jailer, actually. For those who don't know, there's a sort of secret phase where the Jailer heals up for a little bit, which adds a few more grueling moments to what is already kind of a long encounter. First place Echo happened to beat that mechanic, but for other teams, the encounter was bugged, where the Jailer does not heal, and it's hard to blame them for taking advantage of it because, well, one, Blizzard was like, whatever, just go ahead and kill it, and by the time you should get to this secret phase, the boss is at 10% health, and it'd be really frustrating to get that far, only to call a wipe because you gotta, preserve your honor? Anyway, following Echo was 2nd place Method, 3rd place Skyline, 4th place Pieces, and 5th place US Team Liquid, who I guess doesn't see the difference between being 2nd and being 5th. In case you're wondering, the Top Alliance Guild is honestly at 21st place as of this recording, with 8 of 11 bosses down. The takeaway from this follows last week's discussion we were having regarding mental health, and balancing that with a community-driven event with no one to regulate them but themselves. It's clear that this particular race has taken a toll on top players, and it won't surprise me if more than a handful of them are not going to be interested in subjecting themselves to this sort of routine again. As a player who is now progressing on the Jailer in normal difficulty, I don't think I can offer a great opinion on what they ought to do. I was in error for thinking to know any better, but I do encourage them to speak out so we, the audience, can just listen. Liquid fell back to 5th place for a number of reasons, including packing up and going home from their on-site location. Any decent raid leader would know to read the room of their homies and see that after pushing their team so hard, there's a choice to make between pushing them a little bit more for the finish and just throwing in the towel because 2nd or 3rd or even 4th place is not worth the burnout. Some observers would see that as giving up. It's easy to say if you're not there as one of them, not under that sort of pressure. That's why I encourage these top teams to speak out with their experiences and what they went through. Let the community listen and give their own takes. And maybe it'll turn into a lot of bitching for Blizzard to tune raids for a 2-week race if they, Blizzard, decides to listen. Maybe, and this is more like my personal agenda, maybe the event will redefine itself into something that's, still a race, but the community somehow self-regulates. For example, instead of 14-hour days of raiding, teams agree to limit themselves to 8 or 10. Or how about at the very start of the race during the early part of the season, top teams have some sort of soft agreement to begin progression at the same time. Whatever the case though, it seems clear to me that while at least this race was pretty exciting, it's just not sustainable for competitors as it is right now. On a closely related note, we can't ignore that the WoW team, while they're under no obligation to tailor the raid to the race, released SFO as arguably the most overtuned raid in WoW's history, with a ton of hotfixes that have nerfed many encounters over the past few weeks. It's kind of an overcorrection after a number of bosses from Sanctum of Domination sort of just fell over thanks to some clever play or developer negligence, however you want to spin it. Still, it seems some people are walking away from this raid, like me, seeing it as, immensely memorable, as an overall more difficult raid that challenges individual responsibility without over-reliant on class stacking. This could still change though, as we slowly fill up the Hall of Fame and then later re-experience the raid in Season 4 content. This week, the saga of the Shadowlands story reached its conclusion, and with it, the Warcraft team's attempt at wrapping up the decades-long story of Sylvanas Windrunner to an understandably mixed reaction. I did a spoiler-free review of Sylvanas the book, which in my opinion did an excellent job of completing the character of Sylvanas while at the same time infuriating me with how it needed to be patched up the way it was. This is a different feeling from the WoW team, they're not making Covenant switching an easy thing until a year later. This is more about fans feeling attached to a character, emotionally investing themselves into him, reacting to changes and shifts without knowing why, and then finding out later with hopefully a sigh of relief. Personally, I don't see that as a very fun journey for those who are into the lore, and I hope that in the future that we're not subjected to having to basically deploy character development patches. As of this week though, the Shadowlands story is over, with the moral of the story being, hey, If the system doesn't work, consider discussion and reform instead of what? Unilaterally deciding that all of existence needs to be remade? Like I said, I'm not going to get into the spoilers, but I feel sorry for the jailer at this point. Like, if the Shadowlands was an office and the Eternal ones were all co-workers of sorts, then the jailer was just treated like crap. Dude's got the toughest job with no breaks, he can't seem to get help from anyone, he's stuck in like one place, while everyone else got to play in the forest or live out their power fantasy, throw parties and gladiator fights and whatever. Out of all of them, he, the jailer, was the one most treated like a machine, which, you know, they all are, but you know what I mean. So is it any wonder why he thought the system didn't work? Regardless though, I say with confidence, knowing that many of you are going to disagree, that with the ending of Shadowlands, the story feels complete. There are a lot of threads that are likely to lead us to more stories and more conflicts, but the problems with the Shadowlands themselves appear to be resolved. Sylvanas seems to have left the building, so to speak. Night Elves got their taste of catharsis. The hole in the sky is closed, and now we can take care of more immediate problems like the rampaging undead and the stabbing. You realize that happened back in 2017. That's when TikTok became a thing. That was the year Fortnite launched. I feel kind of old. Anyway, Shadowlands being both over and not over is going to be an interesting moment to observe, I think. Some folks are getting what they wanted with these lulls. Another patch that might ease us into the next expansion. Another season to pass the time that we would have to endure anyway. Back to the lore, the story gets to breathe a little bit during 9.2.5 with a spattering of quests to fill us in on what's been happening, maybe with hints of what's to come. There are signs that the story in this patch is more than just Blood Elves and Dark Iron Dwarves. Data miners hint at a cutscene that includes the Winter Queen, which really could mean anything. Someone pointed out a Flight Point 2 Brill that doesn't work yet, which could also mean anything. What's got me excited is that 9.2.5, unlike 9.1.5, is a story patch. We're going to learn things. We're going to move forward, which will make the lead into the 10.0 expansion feel more like a slide as opposed to a sudden shift. This week brought us a bit of a surprise hotfix that I'm still trying to wrap my head around. A new item, the Vestige of the Devourers, was added to the Enlightened Quartermaster, as well as a quest to direct us to it, which to me is actually a bigger deal than the item, and I'll get to that in a bit. Oftentimes, when a hotfix is applied that adds something new, it's kind of up to everyone but Blizzard to inform people. Sure, there's like a hotfix note added, but not everyone sees that. Not everyone follows Twitter. Remember just last week, the Bag of Explored Souls was hotfixed in, added to the same vendor. Folks like me and sites like Wowhead let people know, but not everyone reads Wowhead, and not everyone watches me, and you can help by, you know. I like what the WoW team did here. A quest from an NPC that everyone is going to run into eventually, who points us in the direction of the new thing. So let the game communicate things to us more often. That is super helpful. This Vestige is going to be interesting to talk about because as of this writing, it's actually been pulled off the vendor, again, with no alert. The last time we checked, it cost roughly 5,000 gold, or 2 Covenant Callings. It's usable on only rank 1 legendary recipes, and it will boost the item level of said legendary to a rank 5 and item level of 249 when you have this thing crafted. Now that item level of 249 isn't so great, or is it? Because we gotta put some of this into context. This rank 1 belt over here costs 25 ingots, 10 bars, 25 flux, not cosmic flux but the other thing, and 10 shards. A rank 4 of this belt costs 4 times the materials, which is easily more than 5,000 gold after market prices, but with this material, someone who only knows basic training can make a rank 5, making the crafting of decently powerful legendaries for alts and new characters extremely accessible. Maybe too accessible, as the item might have been pulled from the vendor for that reason. The intention here isn't just to give more access to latecomers and alts, it's probably to drive down prices just a little bit more. If the price of a rank 5 is going to drop down to what I estimate is like a little bit over 10,000 gold, well, there goes the value of all the ranks below it. I already talked a bit on 9.2.5, but I'd like to speculate a little bit on the when of things, as I often do. This week's build notes indicate that work for Season 4 is being done that will cause issues on the current PTR, reinforcing my early prediction that everything that we're going to see in Season 4 will be tested in this test cycle and put into the 9.2.5 patch. If that is the case, it means that regardless of when 9.2.5 is released, we're going to see Season 4 begin exactly when Blizzard wants it to, barring delays and catastrophe, of course. That's going to mean a Season 4 start date that falls between late August and early September. So we're going to have a summer in the sepulcher, I guess, followed by what I think is going to be a season of chaos and experimentation. And while we're on that subject of experimentation, I propose a number of other random things for the team to just try out, like, how about a third equipable legendary? Come on. Or actual gear in Torghast. Throw in some endless floors for the heck of it. How about lifting some annoying cooldowns like the Ember Court? Let me just grind that thing out. Let Pokepoke have adventures outside of Zereth Mortis. Heck, let them have adventures outside of the Shadowlands. There are some old raids that I can use a bit of help on. And if you got ideas, feel free to share them because I'm already setting this tone of insanity. Have at it. And that's the show. Here's the part where I tell you how the guild is doing in the current raid. Lords of Dread and Rygalon, they're dead, got them. Both of the fights, which were on normal difficulty by the way, turned out to be pretty pleasant after hearing others smugly claim that I would need add-ons to do the Among Us phase, or that we'd need a guide for Rygalon, which, while tighter on the DPS check, it's mechanically really simple on that difficulty. So we earned those kills, and then we pulled the jailer a few times.
Oh, that's just Lanny's teaching us how to do arena.
Oh no.
Oh god, something's happening in Soul.
Ow.
Oh god, 200.
I was right.
Just because I listened to the Raise to World first does not mean I know anything about the encounters beyond and like a Dobby glide and doing big Gigadam. So, if we're fast enough next week, the jailer's dead and all will be good. It's funny, because we're racing against having to beat the Raid Finder timer, and we're just one step ahead. So the next 2 weeks are expected to be the deadest weeks in WoW news, although we have been surprised a lot over the past few months. Next week brings us another Raid Finder wing, as I mentioned. We're getting 9.2.5 builds, but that's about it until the 19th, when everything happens. An expansion announcement, the creation catalyst, another episode of Moon Knight later that day. One thing to point out, there are only a few episodes left of Leak season that are going to come, and you bet that in the days leading up to the big announcement, I'm going to share some predictions, and we'll set up a bingo card together, and we're going to try to have fun with this. So I hope you join me here on the channel. I hope you like this video and subscribe, by the way, and hang with us over on Twitch if you want me to bloviate live. Coffee with Soul happens Tuesdays through Thursdays, starting at 8:30 a.m. Pacific, or not, it's your life, it's all good. A big thanks to the viewers on Twitch and to the very valued patrons for supporting me. That includes a newcomer dexterity of 20. You must have very cool parents with very cool naming conventions, and I gotta thank you too, viewer, for making it to the end. Thanks one more time for letting me be a part of your day, and I'll see you next week. Until then, stay safe, stay healthy, and stay breezy.